everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I want to read a couple of stories with you from my backyard. It's such a nice day. I wanted to get out, enjoy some sunshine, and have a chance to read outside, and I'm excited that I get to share that time with you today. I have two stories that we are going to read from the same character. The first story that we are going to read is called Charlotte the Scientist is Squished. This is a book about a little bunny right here. Her name is Charlotte, and she has a problem. She is squished in her family, and she's trying to figure out how she can find more space. So she uses the scientific method to complete a couple of experiments to see if she can figure out how to do that. So let's enjoy the story today. First of all, right here, it starts out with the scientific method. So first, remember, we always want to ask a question, form a hypothesis, create our experiment and do our experiment, see what happens, record our observations, and then come up with a conclusion. And here's Charlotte the scientist ready to go. Charlotte was a serious scientist. Protective glasses and a lab coat and a magnifying glass were her essential equipment, plus a clipboard for important notes. Charlotte solved problems by conducting experiments that followed the scientific method. And Charlotte had a problem. She was squished. Here she is in the middle. She was squished at the table. She was squished in the tub. And sometimes she was even squished on the toilet. It had become impossible to conduct her experiments. Her test tubes were taken, her beakers got broken, and her specimens were spoiled. Charlotte needed some space. Time to use the scientific method. Step 1, ask a question. How can I get some space around here? Step 2, form a hypothesis. If I can get rid of my brothers and sisters, I will have room to be a real scientist. Step 3, test the hypothesis. Experiment. Here she has some vanishing potion. She tried an experiment to make everyone disappear, but it didn't work. She tried another experiment to make herself disappear, but that didn't work either. Oh, here she is working hard on something. Keep out. Bang, clang, boom. If she was going to get some space, she would have to go there. And she made it. Step 4, make and record observations. Charlotte was no longer squished at the table. She was no longer squished in the tub. And Charlotte could take as long as she wanted on the toilet. So here are her observations. Meals? Check. Baths? Check. Toilet? Check. Now it's time for important experiments. Space was splendid. Finally! Step 5, draw conclusions. She had all the room she needed to conduct very important experiments using her protective glasses, lab coat, and magnifying glass. Her test tubes were tidy, her beakers looked brilliant, and her specimens were sparkling. Her hypothesis was correct. She finally had room to be a scientist. The only problem was there was no one to talk to at mealtime. No one to blow bubbles with in the tub. And what was Charlotte supposed to do when she ran out of toilet paper? Hello? Space was lonely. Back to step 2. Form a new hypothesis. If I can have friends in space, then I won't be lonely and I can be a real scientist. Time for more experiments. Charlotte tried chocolate, but it was too tempting. The balloons kept floating away. And robot bunnies were poor conversationalists. They got ruined in the bathtub and tangled in the toilet paper. Charlotte missed her family. She even missed being squished. So she tried one last experiment. She's coming back to her family's home. And reached a new conclusion. Charlotte didn't need outer space. She just needed her own space. And the cool thing about this book also is in the back, it talks about all of the steps of the scientific method that we just went through. And there's a spot right here where Charlotte has a message for you. And she says, I want to know how you are being a scientist at home with your friends or in your classroom. Follow the scientific method to answer a question. Then write and tell me about it. And here's the address to send your letters to. Or you can email them to Charlotte at charlottethescientist.com. So this is the first in our series of books about Charlotte the Scientist, and there's a second one that I have. Let me grab it here. And this book is called Charlotte the Scientist Finds a Cure. And this book I find really interesting because you'll find as I read it, you'll find a lot of parallels in this story to what's actually going on in our world right now. Charlotte notices that in her community, lots of her forest friends are getting sick. And they're trying to find a cure and trying to figure out why all of the friends in the forest are getting sick. And Charlotte thinks she has the answer. Just like a lot of us are spending a lot of time at home with our families trying to stay safe, and we've been hearing the word quarantine a lot, that vocabulary word comes up in this book, and you'll see where the patients are in quarantine in the book. So let's see what Charlotte has for us today in this special story, and let's see how she finds a cure. Charlotte was a serious scientist. She spent her days doing research, performing experiments, and solving problems. Charlotte lived in the forest with her bunny-sized family, which was bigger and better than ever because Grandpa moved in. Grandpa was wise. He had many awards, and when he spoke, everyone paid attention. Every day, Grandpa visited Charlotte in her lab. He watched her doing research, performing experiments, and solving problems. Every day, Grandpa said, "Charlotte, you are going to make a real difference in the world." Charlotte paid attention. One day, Grandpa didn't come to the lab. He was sick, and Grandpa wasn't the only one. A mysterious malady had infected the animals of the forest. Charlotte wanted to help. Maybe this was her chance to make a difference. She swapped her magnifying glass for a stethoscope, her protective glasses for a mask and gloves, and got to work. It was time for some serious medical science. Charlotte would find a cure. First, she collected a complete medical history on each patient. What seems to be the problem? Next, she gave a thorough physical exam. Patient privacy was top priority. Then she gathered specimens, but her results were inconclusive. Charlotte was stumped. The infection was spreading fast, so she imposed a quarantine. But keeping bunnies in one place was next to impossible. The birds kept flying away, and skunks stinking simultaneously was proving problematic. Meanwhile, a team of doctors arrived to visit Grandpa. Charlotte was eager to share her research and work with them to find a cure. But instead, they ignored her. Run along, little one. This is grown-up work. Charlotte was wondering if they were right. She was little, and the doctors were very smart. Maybe she should leave it to the experts. But then she remembered what Grandpa had told her. Charlotte, you are going to make a real difference in the world. She would find the cure herself. Charlotte dissected the data, studied the samples, and plotted out patterns. Soon, a curious carrot connection emerged. Everyone who was sick had been eating carrots. In fact, the carrots hadn't looked quite right for some time. Charlotte formed a hypothesis. If everyone who was sick had been eating carrots, then the carrots were what was making everyone sick. Charlotte consulted the comprehensive compendium of carrot conditions. It could only be one thing: funky forest fungi. After careful consideration, Charlotte came up with a second hypothesis. If eating the infected carrots was making everyone sick, then stopping contaminated carrot consumption could be the cure. Stop! Don't eat the carrots! Charlotte went back to work. The carrots needed to be cured, so she created a customized carrot corrective. Charlotte thought a few sprays a day should do the trick. It worked. But Charlotte didn't stop there. She conducted a clinical trial to see if eating cured carrots could mend the malady. It did. Charlotte realized she didn't need to be the oldest or smartest. She had stopped the sickness, cured the carrots, and saved the forest. Charlotte had made a difference. And best of all was the difference in how she saw herself. And at the end, again, we can see that there's a glossary of terms that were used in this book with a lot of different medical names. And here at the end, we have another message from Charlotte. Let's see what it says. I realized I didn't need to be the oldest or the smartest to make a difference. I am good enough just by being myself. Write and tell me how you are making a difference, either by using science or by just being yourself, at home, with your friends, or in your classroom. And here's the address where you can send a letter to Charlotte if you would like to. And I just want to end by saying that I know, kids, it's really hard, all of us being home right now, but you are doing your part in finding a cure by staying home and staying safe with your families and being healthy in your homes so that the scientists and the researchers and doctors can work on finding a cure, just like Charlotte did, for what we're experiencing in our communities right now. So thanks for listening. Be safe and be well.